Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Fylde Road Coaching Podcast. Today we're going back to our usual podcast format when we're going to be talking about a topic which is social media. I am joined with my new co-host Lewis Eaton because of his new haircut.
Yeah, how's it going? Will, you all right?
Yeah, so like I said, we're going to be talking about social media, and we're going to talk about how it influences our coaching, how it can be beneficial to the athlete, and how it can also have some sort of negative effect on the athlete's development, if that's either technical, social, whatever. We're delving into that sort of information soon. So, yeah, Lewis, you got anything to say?
Yeah, so basically just some research that I found about how social media, like specifically now, during COVID and the pandemic, from Hayes 2020, and so how social media this year has really been like there to inspire activity. For example, like you got like Joe Wicks and stuff like that, who's and how like he's used social media in a way to have a positive effect on people's participation in sport.
Yeah.
And I think this is something which, especially this year, has been really like dominated. Like a lot of fitness instructors taking online to like teach sessions, or even like football coaches going online to coach sessions. And just kind of, I want us to consider like what influence social media has on like Fylde Road, for example.
Yeah.
And like obviously like the level we're at, how could we use social media in like a positive sense?
Yeah, it's definitely some good points you raised. I think the first one is definitely COVID. Like COVID has made like all sort of social interaction at the moment is on some sort of platform. So as like how do we kind of go from a traditional meeting at this place, teaching, coaching as you will, how do we kind of move that from that sort of context to an online context? And for me it's definitely been difficult. I feel that for most people it's been difficult. It's been like no one could predict what could have happened. So everybody's been adjusting to this sort of like new style of life. For Fylde Road, I think we've done quite well to maintain that sort of that banter, as you will, on the Facebook group chat. I think that's what we've done well. I don't know from your point of view. Do you reckon we've
Yeah,
done well?
I'd agree in the in like the Facebook sense of we speak in it nearly every other day. I'd say about to the players and stuff. Telling them information about when the league will be starting up again and stuff like that. I think we could be a bit more influential on the side of like the Twitter and the Instagram.
Yeah,
But at the minute, there's nothing really we could put up for
that's
players
what I was
there.
thinking because we when we were active on social media or well on Twitter and Instagram, it was basically because of football and the results and like getting people hyped for a match day. When we don't have their match days, how do we use them social platform like them social media platforms in like a way outside of results and outside of games? Do we use it to recruit players? I
Yeah,
don't really know.
I think it's a difficult one, especially now, because it's there's our kind of journey with Fylde Road really begun, and then it didn't really, it's going to end like very
Yeah, yeah,
quickly.
yeah,
So it's the fact that we've got to, in that sense, use social media in a way to whoever who's going to come and take over the team now and the future or whatever can have them players there and like that platform to excel on kind of thing. So I think in a way we've got to use social media to get more players in. I think we could use that through Twitter and Instagram. I think we could use it especially through Facebook. With like the person in the league, like Carl. I think he's quite a big influence um, on like how players come into different clubs and stuff like that. So I think it's about, especially within social media, I think building that player coach relationship is definitely important, especially within the coaching as well aspect of it.
yeah, definitely. Just to bring up like the previous point you just said, I think it kind of highlights the importance of we need to kind of build this sort of media like this, like the kind of like the like followers and subscribers. I don't know whichever platform it is, to kind of give the next person a better chance on recruiting players and kind of making a team, a bit more stable looking forward. Because like we're not really here long, we're only here for the entire year. Once we're finished, we have to pass it on. So I feel like it kind of our responsibilities as like the founders is to create like a I don't know, like a stable.
Like a basis there for someone to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important.
But yeah. So, but anyway, like you said, moving on from that point, it's kind of just value that it does benefit the athlete to coach relationship. We can interact through Facebook group chats, through Twitter. We can kind of create, like I said before, that banter with players. I think it's definitely beneficial towards that the athlete and coach relationship,
Yeah.
especially in the student union context where we just want to, we want to highlight the importance of fun and enjoyment. And I feel like social media is a good way to do that. Everybody's on their phones nowadays, like everybody's going to be interacting in some
definitely.
way.
Like on like the flip side of that, do you think there's any negatives for the use of social media that can have an influence, especially at this level, and even other levels? Like, is any negatives you'd say?
I think COVID has kind of been detrimental in that sort of regard because if you think about it, we didn't. Some players of our team, they've not really had that much time to interact and get in with like the friendship groups within our team, and but they're in the group chat. Might kind of feel like kind of neglected from some sort of conversations because they haven't really been able to interact in person or in events. And they kind of got some inside jokes they don't really understand, and I feel like kind of has some sort of negative effect. I feel like it can kind of create that kind of feeling of, not really self-belonging within the team.
Yeah, it can damn it. As obviously like you said, they mentioned about positives through social media, like interacting and trying to keep people involved. But I definitely think there is negatives because that team cohesion, like physically, isn't there, is it? It's like it's been damaged. It could be damaged, like you said, and I said about like people making joke stuff that some people might not get, like they're not in on like some of the banter that other the lads have or whatever. Like I think it can have a negative effect, and I think especially social media as a whole can have like a really negative effect on like
It can be a dark place at times.
yeah, it can, and especially football. Like for
Yeah.
example, like football Twitter, that's a very dark place. And just go off topic a bit there, but like social media around football can be quite dark at times, and
Yeah, because
I think about
it's got a reputation, doesn't it, football Twitter? So if you don't know what football Twitter is, it's kind of like there's like people accounts who make accounts on Twitter
football
where
players.
they've just got like a football player page, like so they've got no like kind of association to their actual identity. They're just some sort of like like a famous football, like a good like their profile picture is normally like quite a good picture of like their
Yeah,
favorite player, and they use these accounts to like I don't
bully
know,
in the
bully.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah, like they give people a lot of stick. They're very racist. Every time you hear on the main media, like mainstream media news of a player being racially abused on social media, it's from a football Twitter account.
and
Because
usually it's from younger like young lads like 14, 13, and that's like crazy. And especially that's the influence I think social media has in like the negative sense within sports participation. I think we as coaches are encouraging athletes, well, players, sorry, to play at our club and all this stuff. Obviously, at our level, we're not going to get like there's not going to be abuse. There might be a bit of banter online between clubs, but as you mentioned there, like at that high level with coaching, like the abuse that people get is like
yeah,
ridiculous, and
it's
like
like it doesn't feel like I don't know what's the correct word to use. Like it doesn't feel like like what's it human? Am I?
yeah,
Don't mean
yeah,
you don't feel it doesn't feel like it's actually like it doesn't feel like
real.
real. Yeah, that's what I'm going for.
I'd say with like it's like you got things like Zahar and stuff like he got abused in it online, and then you got players like Axel Tuanzebe AB at United, and that's the influence social media can have in a negative place. And like you mentioned there, at times it can make a really dark place. So
It's
us
just
interacting with our players through social media, like the Facebook groups, obviously has that positive light, but it will never go to the sense of like that dark how at the
no,
high level it can be so dark. And I think about round that there needs to be a lot of education with around social media, especially to be honest, especially even in the student union league, because there has been a few incidents, hasn't there, in the past? Obviously,
Yeah.
probably shouldn't mention them, but I mean, as in like with regards to like racism and homophobia and stuff with other clubs,
Yeah, definitely.
other
Yeah.
student
So,
union clubs. So I think it's quite thingy to mention that there needs to be a lot of education about how people are using the social media. Like me and you, we're not like, well, you might be, we're not like social media wizards or whatever. Like you're good with computers and stuff like that, but it's about knowing the right thing to say, because you say the wrong thing online and it's forever there. It's there forever, isn't it? So
yeah. And it
it's
can
about
affect.
having creating that like correct image, I think, and like managing your own image.
Because I feel like they are starting to implement it in some sort of coach like football academies, so like the how to. I think, like you mentioned before, football Twitter is young lads. So I feel like, from my point of like, from my opinion, I think like the source to kind of tackle this sort of football Twitter, like the negatives from it, will be to just to educate him through, training sessions at a recreational level all the way up to like an elite level. That's probably from my point of view, that's how I'll tackle it.
Yeah.
The method I'll choose, I don't have a clue.
I do think recently it's such a hard, because it's not even like a sport problem, it's like a general problem as
Yeah,
well. How big social media is so big, and like
it's
even it like
part of life
I
now.
say again.
It's part of life.
Yeah, I'll definitely. I seen a statistic. Um, I was doing one of my flip grids before, and a statistic about like social participation and how like from 2007 to now, we've increased our social media like intake from for like 70%. That's crazy. Like how I'd said the world's being just taken over by social media, and I think
Just
that can affect
technology.
people getting involved in sport, especially.
You reckon? Do you reckon? So you're saying like the the more people use social media is got like, it correlates to an increased participation in sport.
I'd say no. I'd say that some people who use social media, well, use it in the wrong sense of the fact of to abuse people online. But I do think it increases viewership of sport, but I don't think it
Yeah.
can increase participation. At our level, I think obviously it's
Well,
like
shouldn't
I'd say
future?
like we have a bubble, don't we?
Yeah.
I'd say online of well, our social media, we have like Far Road, and we have the other clubs, and then we have like the U Clan Student Union and stuff. That's like our bubble for the Far Roads like Twitter account. So we have all them, and obviously we all interact with each other in a positive sense. But
Yeah.
outside that thing, and there's other clubs, and sometimes not as positive. So I do think can have a decrease on participation, especially if people are getting like abused online, like individuals. That can affect someone, and who might not want to play again with someone like that.
Definitely. Yeah. It definitely has some sort of, yeah. But that's just come back down to the education. Like this
Mm.
person shouldn't be getting bullied in the first place. It's just a bit of like some sort of like this never-ending, like cycle. It's a bit of a shame. But like you said, like the team, we got a bubble at the moment. This sort of football Twitter doesn't really apply to us, but
Mm.
it's still something that we feel appropriate. We need to address because it's not suitable at any level.
It's good.
Even, yeah,
Yeah. So sorry. Just like jump in there. I think it's good to notice it though. It's good to be able to be like, we noticed that there's that side of social media which could have negative influence. Do you know what I mean? So we're kind of on obviously we're on the positive side. We're obviously using an example there, which is obviously would be the extreme. I don't think that would ever happen at our level of social media or anything like that. But I mean, as in that's just an example that can happen. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I feel like at our level, it's if something like happened, I think we would probably know who did it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like we said, it has happened in the past though. So that's you can kind of say, is that football Twitter kind of making its way to our level? Is that like that sort of anger in Twitter? Is that
Mm.
it is kind of it does have some sort of ripple effect, which does crosses over into our domain of recreational, our student union football. So it's definitely something to acknowledge. Luckily,
Mm.
we have not acknowledged it, and we it's
Use it in
like,
a positive sense.
but we haven't really addressed it to our team because we don't feel like we had to have to. It
Mm.
doesn't really suit our environment. Doesn't really affect our environment. But maybe it's something we need to start educating our own players on.
Yeah,
I don't know what your views on that is.
I definitely agree. I think you need to notice that if players who are interacting with the club on say like Twitter or like anything like that, they need to know that you can't say certain things, and like you can't use like profanity and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of that where it's about people's like individual like culture, like how they were brought up, kind of thing. I think that can have an
Yeah,
effect on how it can influence people on social media because you get to do a lot of people who are like are okay speaking on social media behind the screen and abusing someone, but as soon as it comes to light, it's a bit like, oh, I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I made a mistake, and I think that like education is just really important, like we've previously mentioned, for like especially players. I think that's something which we could. I don't think we personally would need to do it because I don't think. I think all the people who we play with, I think they have like an understanding without even knowing they have an understanding of the right and wrongs of how social media can influence you.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So like we talked quite heavily about the negatives, but unfortunately there is so many negatives that come with social
Yeah,
media. You just kind of have to bite the bullet. But there is also many positives. There's also stuff like like we talked about the social cohesion, social interaction. We're living in a world which at the moment it's all online. Like our degrees online, our how we contact our families through online at the moment because we can't see them because of COVID. It does bring like this. It does bring people together. It's just knowing how to use it efficiently and effectively. And as coaches, we just need to understand how to educate the players, basically.
yeah. I think like especially with us, we can't do something like Joe Wicks does with our players, like coaching through
Yeah,
like Zoom or something like that. It'd be too difficult, especially at this level. So I think the way we can promote social media is through like the positive interaction and like
yeah.
you said, building that team cohesion instead
Trying
of coaching in the sense.
encourage involvement.
Yeah,
That's
that's the
all.
way
Yeah.
involvement engagement is that's what the way we can use social media in like a
So
positive sense.
how would you like just out of question out of curiosity because obviously I've not really done this before. I don't really know how to do it. So just from your like just off the top of your head, how would you encourage involvement within our team?
I think a good way is to do like maybe quizzes or something like that, like a little task. It's not even something to do with sport. It's just something to have interaction. Zoom conversations. Obviously, we previously mentioned that and stuff like that. But having Zoom conversation with the team, just like catch up, not even
Yeah,
about football, just about in general. Um, maybe like polls online
yeah.
involvements or
So,
best goal, like videos of the best goals and pictures or like all
Premier League
this stuff like that.
quizzes, you
Yeah,
know,
like something like, oh, who's this player or whatever, and like be one of our players, and there's good ways to interact, like players, and
just
obviously,
yeah. And you can be creative as well, which I also like about social media. You can be like I said there, like who's this player. You can be creative in how to get the people to how to get the team to involve with each other. There's
yeah.
so many areas of ways. It's just yeah. You've mentioned some very good points there, mate.
I think in our way, social media is something for us which is a strength completely,
Yeah,
and how we use it is obviously up to us. But at this, obviously now, I don't think we'd need to be heavily involved with it now, but especially when things start coming back. Do you know what I mean? I think we need to be on it all the time, being like, oh, who's, with new like team and recruiting and stuff like that. But hopefully things come back quite soon,
yeah,
football wise anyway, and then we can just push on from there. Maybe hopefully if Carl like extends the league or whatever, or
yeah.
maybe
Hopefully,
a few
fingers
games or
crossed.
something like that.
Yeah,
It would be a shame to have just a few games and then not have meet new people or bring that
I
use
think
that through social media.
I think we will be first back because I think because we're a school, maybe we'll be able to because schools are back in progress soon, aren't
Yeah.
they? We're considered as a school sport, so hopefully, I mean that's what Carl's trying to fight for in our league. So hopefully he's successful.
Yeah, hopefully he is. And like I say, I think we could take a lot of things from how like other organisations that you can, especially other teams, how they produce things through their social media. I think I
Yeah,
can't remember which team it is, but they have like a very creative way of like doing a team lineup and stuff. I've seen that, and I think that's quite a cool way of like
yeah,
doing stuff
that's
like that, or like who's in the team and like pictures of the players. I think that's really creative for social media because you look at that and you think, oh, it's really something we
yeah.
should do, and it's about taking ideas and tips as well.
I think that's the best thing about it. You can also like develop your own way how to use stuff through other teams, and
Mhm.
also like you mentioned, I think it's good to have some sort of interaction with the other teams in our league. Like when we used to play teams, we used to message them saying like, "Oh, well done, lads." Before we used to say good luck, and it
In a
kind
way.
of sets that kind of like a healthy team environment or working environment for our players and their players before and during the match.
Yeah,
So
it's
good
creating
stuff
that
like
bond
that.
in it.
And that works towards our goal, of being like that self-belonging, self-team cohesion. It's just little stuff like that through social media, which has such a positive ripple effect across the entire team and league, and it's that's definitely the positives from it.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think, like you said there about interacting with the other teams, it creates that bond, doesn't it? Really, and like you said, the cohesion. To be honest, mate, I think that's quite a lot of the points there we've gone through.
Yeah.
I don't. Is there anything that you think maybe can influence social
Uh,
media?
no, like I've said, I think we've definitely discussed, the positives and the negatives. I think the positives don't really outweigh the negatives. I won't really use that terminology. I kind of like there's positives there, but you also have to acknowledge the negatives and
Mm.
use that as and use the negatives to educate people and so on. It's definitely something that we need to develop within our team, but I think at the moment we're doing a good job. When we used to be playing, we did a good job, but there's always creative ways, like we mentioned, to really develop our use of social media. But that's all from me. Yeah. Um, Thank you guys for watching another episode of the Fylde Road Coaching Podcast. Thank you for joining us on our journey. If you liked or have any of your own creative ways about social media, involve it to the comments. But please subscribe and follow us on our journey. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you in a
In a bit.
bit. See you later.